Seen a lot of people pushed to their edge. You ever wonder if maybe that's the point?
What's the deal, my people? You know it is Don Tony Teflon, and From Season 2 starts this Sunday. Let's get the hype train rolling. But before it starts, I wanted to do this video and explain to you, or ask you the question, what actually is going on in this town? Why are they there? What the hell is this place? I'm going to explain to you exactly that in this video. And if you can, please thumbs up the video, 500 likes. I will give a subscriber who leaves a comment on this video 1 month of MGM Plus for free. In fact, we're going to do it for just about every video this season. So let's get this thing popping, my people. In order to fully understand exactly what's going on, we have to look at the clues that were left for us. And the number one thing we have to explain is the talisman. What's going on with the talisman and why does it work? Why does it not work? When we understand this, I think it's easy to see exactly what's going on in this town. First time the show starts, we see the grandma monster, and we also see the little girl with her mother. And the grandma monster convinces the little girl to open the window that Boyd said should have been nailed shut to come inside that house. At this particular time, we can assume that that talisman was hanging up in the same spot that it was supposed to be hanging in. Even though the talisman was on the wall, the monster was still able to come inside of the house and kill them both. And when they left, the next time we seen the talisman, it was on the floor. So what happened here? The fact that there were only 3 people in that house that we know of at this particular time, we have to assume that it was the monsters themselves that took that talisman off the wall and threw it to the floor before they left. Next attack happens, we see Sarah. What does Sarah do? She kills Toby and she makes it look like the monsters broke into the clinic. After the monsters go in there and kill Kenny's father and the other nurse, we see again that the talisman is left on the floor as the monsters go inside of the building. So the door was open. Would they have been able to get in there if that door was open and that talisman was still on the wall? I'm going to have to say most likely they wouldn't. Why? Because when we see Boyd find the talismans, we see him go inside of a cave, and when he falls in the cave, they look at him. He doesn't have 4 sides surrounding him. He just has vines in front of him, and they're not able to go inside of that cave. Speaking of Boyd, when we seen Boyd go off with Sarah and he gets dragged inside the tent, the first thing that he does when the tent stops is grab the talisman off the floor and hang the talisman up again. That's the number one thing he has to do. He's scared to death that the talisman is on the floor. So what can we learn from all of this? And Fatima and Ellis are fighting for their lives when the monsters are coming, and Fatima is trying to save Ellis's life. She shuts all 4 doors in the vestibule and puts the talisman on the wall and starts to say a prayer, and they are not allowed to enter in that room even though they are already inside of the house, thanks to our boy Porn Stats. Again, we see a similar pattern in all these things. That is, if this talisman is on the floor, for whatever reason, it does not work anymore. The talisman must be off of the floor in order for it to work. I don't believe that you'll be able to take this talisman and rock it like a Flavor Flav necklace and put it on and walk around the monsters. I don't think it works that way. It has to be either on the wall or suspended in the air, hanging down. We've seen that the monsters are not afraid of the talisman itself, because in the first attack, they clearly took it off the wall and they were physically able to touch it. So it's nothing to do with them grabbing it and throwing it on the floor. They can touch that talisman if they can get to it. It's not going to touch them, and they're going to ignite into fire if they do. So what's going on with this talisman, and why does it work at this particular time? We also know that you don't need 4 solid walls in order for this talisman to work. As we seen with Boyd, he only had vines draped in front of him, and they still couldn't. So you seem to need 4 sides of something. Doesn't matter if it's hanging there, as long as the talismans are not on the floor, they will work. So why is this? I know a lot of people want to believe it's some magical spell and that's what's out, but I can't see it being that whatsoever. Just like the faraway tree, I believe that that is a teleportation device that is putting people where they wanted to go, not a magical tree as it seems to be. I think they just used a tree to make it blend in the environment, and that is why it seems to be moving when Victor says it moves a couple of inches. Since that is really a technology-based item, I think that this talisman is the same exact thing. It's a technology-based item that's masquerading as a rock, as a talisman, just so that it seems to fit in place. So the question is, why does this rock work when it's up above the ground, and why does it not work when it touches the ground? And I can only find one thing that points in this direction, that also points that this rock has some type of technology in it that's allowing it to work, and that is atmospheric electricity. Atmospheric electricity is always present, and during the fine weather away from thunderstorms, the air above the surface of the earth is positively charged, while the earth's surface charge is negative. So I think when the talisman is in the positive charge phase, when it's hanging and not on the ground, it allows this talisman to actually work. It's running on atmospheric electricity on the positive charge. That's what keeps it working. As soon as it hits the ground, that charge is negative, and it can't juice that battery that we call a talisman anymore. This also explains what could be happening, why all this electricity is running through this town. These aliens have tapped into atmospheric electricity. This is how they supply power to the whole town, and this is how the faraway trees work. It's all due to atmospheric electricity and this alien technology that has tapped into it. When Tabitha has her vision and she's walking through what looks like a lighthouse, we can then see from behind her that there are some dates that are carved into this beam. And the dates that we can see are 1506, 1864, 1931, 1752, 1883, 1978, 1672. Let's break it down. In 1506, Nikolai Copernicus begins to write Revolution of the Orbitum Coelestium, which is about astronomy and space. This is also the date that Christopher Columbus passed away this year. So Christopher Columbus, as we know, was a colonizer who sailed and found a new country. What country? United States of America. In 1864, what happened? We know that the Orgally meteorite was found on Earth, and this could be the material that the talisman is actually made up of. This is also the year that Nicholas Corlin died, and he invented the induction coil. An induction coil produces an intermittent high voltage alternating current from a low voltage direct current supply. In 1609, July 26, English scientist Thomas Harriot becomes the first to draw an astronomical object after viewing it through a telescope. He draws a map of the moon preceding Galileo by several months. This is also the death date of John Dee. He was a court astronomer and advisor for Elizabeth I. In 1752, Benjamin Franklin flies a kite during a thunderstorm, and when the kite is struck by lightning, enabling him to demonstrate the electrical nature of lightning. During the year of 1883, New Jersey earns its place in tech history when the first electrical lighting system employing overhead wires goes into service. In the year of 1931, French astronomer Bernard invents a tool that is used to block out direct light from a star that fits on top of a telescope. So every one of these dates that we have put on the screen so far deals directly with electricity, astronomy, space, discovery. Now, to further understand exactly what's going on in this town and why these people are there, we have to look directly at the talisman itself. If we look at the talisman, we could see two people that are connected. We could also see the sun rise, and either that's a sunset or the moon. Either one it could be, we can't really tell. But on the outside, we see what looks like an F with an extra line. We also see that same exact symbol in the caves with the monsters that they drew themselves, or Victor said that they drew themselves. So what is this symbol exactly? When I look at these symbols, it reminds me of one thing, and that is ancient Hebrew. So we bring up some ancient Hebrew text, we can see that we have all of these symbols in this one talisman. The two men that mean revealed, the spirit, the house, and the leader. We know that the talismans are linked to the houses in town. We know that they were found by Boyd, who is the leader of this town. We can also see the three-tiered F in this religion and in their symbols, but this one is backwards compared to the one on the talisman. Why is that? Well, this is the symbol for he, and he was referring to God, or who they considered God because they had no name for him at this time. In the Bible, there's a Hebrew man named Ezekiel, and this is what he said he saw when he saw God. I looked and I saw a windstorm coming out of the northern immense cloud with flashing lightning and surrounded by brilliant light. The center of the fire looked like glowing metal, and in the fire what looked like 4 living creatures. In appearance, their form was human. So what he saw right here, a lot of people will tell you, is a spaceship, an alien spaceship with people that were humanoid, that looked human, but he confused them with God. So when we look at the symbol, that means God. If you reverse it the way we're seeing it, it would mean alien, not God, because he thought they were gods, but truly they were not. So when we put it all together, what's going on in this town? I believe that it's an experiment with the human race. And since we were dealing with Hebrew text, which is Jewish people text, were Jewish people ever experimented on? You're goddamn right they were. During the Nazi regime, they experimented on all of the inmates that they pulled out and they held captive. During the Holocaust, German scientists used camp inmates to test immunization compounds and antibodies for the prevention and treatment of contagious diseases. The most infamous experiments were on twins of all ages at Auschwitz. During this time, they would remove organs from these children without anesthetics. One twin died, the other would then be murdered. A survivor of this said the first experiment she was subjected to involved being kept in a small wooden cage with her sister and being given painful injections in her back. She doesn't know why, but she thinks it might have been an attempt to change the color of her eyes. It just so happens that this season we see Tabitha get visions of what? Of little kids who look like they're being experimented on. And you could say that they are twins, Raggedy Ann and Andy, the ones that she keeps seeing. They look kind of like twins. So that is what's going on here. They're being experimented on by, I believe, aliens because of Jade. And you can go back and look at my other video. I'll leave it in the description why I believe this all goes back to Jade and is his fault. But you tell me what you think about this in the comment section. And if you like the way I do this, please thumbs up this, spread this across the realm, and as always, subscribe. And until next time, you know who it is. Peace and stay sexy.
Seen a lot of people pushed to their edge. You ever wonder if maybe that's the point?